There is an old saying that only fools travel alone without money. Personally, I think the greatest danger of travelling alone without money is that you start to love mankind less and nature more. When you hear that fire flicker and crackle as you prepare your dumpster dive food, and when you look down and see the display of food you've just cooked, that feeling that comes over you, well, you just can't explain it. Like this squatted farm I ventured into in Holland called the Strouches, where I shared the knowledge of my book, The Experiences of a Talented Chef.
Hi and welcome to the Hitchhiker's Guide to Food, Part 2. Just have a look here what we got here today. Just another alternative of how we can get dumpster dive food. And what we've done here is we've asked our local health food store if they could allow us to have their waste. And what we've got here is some food for both ourselves, vegetarians. And if you are vegetarians, it's a beautiful thing to come to your health food store if you have someone that will do this for you and leave aside vegetables that won't be sold. We've got food here for our goats, we've got enough food for our chickens, and we've got enough fruit and vegetables for ourselves. Alright guys, this is how you do dumpster diving. Basically just watch that there's nobody around. There you go, like so. Some nice cake and that. All good stuff just being thrown out. Just last week I got some beer. Hence no show. You can get lots of things in the seafood skip. It's not that hard. I mean, come on, it's pretty casual. You can see what I'm doing. You know. You just got to fish through a lot of, obviously, rubbish and that. Yeah, there is another good find. You can see. Sometimes I find it's nice to give it away to the camera. Just let them know you're there. At the end of the day, to do it right, don't make too much of a mess. And put your bags back in when you're finished with it. You know, you're actually doing it a favour, you're not actually damaging any property or anything. Just saving stuff to the landfill. I mean, I can go on here all night, there's so much stuff, you know what I mean? There's people walking out of the supermarkets paying for this stuff. They must be getting sick seeing me getting all this stuff. But you should try it. Just go to your supermarket, get a look in there. A lot of stuff's got to be thrown away for, basically if the product isn't selling this year, they get a new product. They restock the shelves and so on and so forth, and they just throw it out to make more money basically. You know what? The rest of it is there, but I just couldn't be arsed looking for it now because we've got so much food here. So you can see guys, look at it. We've got two beautiful bags of food. I'm going to cover up the skip and the food. And I was never here, you know. It's a lot of money like to be throwing up in the skip, and you should try it yourself and you can see it's all not something I can really show how to cook. It's already cooked, but the process of dumpster diving, it's either like this or like you've already seen, just go into your supermarkets and ask and see if they'll give you the ingredients. If not, just go to the skip. That's simple. Back in our kitchen here, got food for the goats, which is what we got from the chef, which gave us all the free food that we had left over. That's the box of it. Cookies from a friend of ours we met in the way, who got another skip, and he got some nice cookies for us. And plenty enough food here to feed us for a long time. You know, so you can see it's all just been thrown out. So I'm just going to start off with making a courgette and cauliflower soup. The first thing you need to know for anything is the knives that you use. This is one of my favourite knives, and it's called a chopping knife. It's Icel, made by Icel. It's got a wooden handle. I prefer to use the wooden handles because once you get wet, your hand won't slip off the knife. I find that plastic handles like so, they can get wet and get very dangerous and you can slip off the knife and cut yourself. Now the simple technique of chopping that I use, first of all, is I guide myself from my middle finger knuckle. So if you see, maybe you see like so, that I'm not actually touching the tip of my finger. My finger is back and my knuckle is in front. And the motion which I practiced is basically like so. leaving the front of the knife always on the board. See how it's done. Courgettes, chop them up for our soup. Nice even kind of sizes, preferably. And you go like so, in that rocking motion, just like so, into our pan. And you can do this without even looking after a while. It's just a motion that comes naturally, and it's all by touch. So I'm just going to cut up these real quick, and you'll see what I'm doing. You get the idea now of skill involved. This is a great way of getting nutrition into your children, is making soup. It's really, really easy to do. So I'm just going to chop up all the ingredients that I have. And what I got here is courgettes, some leeks, some garlic, and some onions. And I just got a couple of parsnips. Now, for any soup that you make, if you're making a white soup, try and use white ingredients. So as you can see, we're using mostly white ingredients, and we're going to finish it off with a little bit of cashew blue cheese. I say cashew blue cheese because it's my local cheese, but it's actually Dutch cheese, but it's blue cheese as well. And again, this is all we got from the health food store that we were in last night. And the garlic that we had was actually Spanish garlic. And what you can see is, with the garlic, is that you don't need to peel it. You literally just peel the skin off the outside of it, and the cloves themselves are intact. And you get a much more nicer flavour out of this garlic, and it's beautiful garlic to use and really healthy for you. So we chop this up like so. I like to just slice this like so. I find that this big knife is a great way of getting it off the chopping board. It's just to slide it underneath like that, and you get all your ingredients on your knife. That's why I prefer the bigger knife most of the time. Onions the same way as the garlic. Just slice them in half, and then just chop them up. Again, nice and even. I'm going to use the big knife for this to show you. You've got much more control over this knife than you do over a smaller knife. So we've got 4 parsnips got into it, 4 onions, 2 heads of cauliflower, and we got our 2 cloves of garlic. And what we're going to do is we're going to sweat these off in our oil. I'm going to add a little bit of water, salt, pepper. I don't use chicken stock for vegetarians. Soups like this, I find that the vegetables, if you do it in this format and you cook them really, really slowly, you get enough flavour out of it to make a natural vegetable stock as opposed to making any other one. So that is basically how you make a soup. The next thing we're going to do is get onto the heat. Alright guys, so we got the vegetables that we have chopped up here in a separate pot. This is a big trick here to making soup. Is this bad boy. And what we got here is some butter and some sunflower oil. That's the secret to making soup right there. So I'll show you how it works. All this vegetables here is full of nutrition, and the more that you cook it, the more you're going to lose your nutritional value out of it. So it's very important for a soup to just put your vegetables in at this stage when it's nice and hot. And just sweat them off. When I say sweat them off, I'll show you. This process that we're going to be using of just sweating them off and letting the vegetables do what they want to do, you can just leave it as it is, and occasionally just give it a little stir and just cook the vegetables to the way that you'd like to eat them raw. And after you'd like to eat them raw and they're actually edible at that stage, then you add the water and then you puree it, and that way you have the goodness of the vegetables, you have the flavour of the vegetables, and you get much more of a creamier texture to it, and it's not, the colour doesn't go bland and black, almost brown. So you can see there the colour going into it, your soup. That's the colour you want coming out of it. Keep it just like that. So just give us a couple of moments and leave that cook, and we'll get back to it. Alright, so we got the vegetables just nicely simmered. Let me show you. We got It's just cooked, and you can see that it's not after burning or it's not after giving any colour to it. There's a little bit of colour in the bottom, but don't worry about that. The minimum amount of colour that you get in it, the better, because it's going to show up in the overall soup when you puree it. Another thing is that this vegetable is now just cooked and it has the high nutritional value which you need for your intake of nutrition. So now is a good time to eat the vegetables if you were going to eat them separately. But we're not going to eat them separately, we're going to make soup out of it. So I've got some water here in the kettle boiled. Now I don't add too much water, I like to add it just maybe up to about here. Literally about 2/3 of the way up the vegetables. And then when you puree the vegetables, you get your consistency and you can add more water to get it into soup consistency. Just like so. I'm going to put that back onto a high heat. Personally, I use cream to give it a nice creamy consistency. But we got this out of the skip, and it's past its sell-by date. And sell-by date doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone off, and I just tasted it and had a good smell of it and whatnot. It just means that it's not, by EU regulation standards, it's not fit to be sold in the food stores. But it's still good, it's not out of date, it's just the sell-by date is out. So we'll just add that into it now. About a half litre into it. Very important to keep it, if you're using gas or if you're using electricity or whatever methods of cooking that you're using, keep it on a nice medium heat and bring it into a nice simmer, and you get a nice slow cooked vegetables. And if you cook it really, really high, you just don't get as much flavour out of it at all. So we'll leave that just simmer, and then we just puree it, salt and pepper, and that's our soup made. Alright, so our soup is just ready and everything's cooked in it. So the first thing we need to do now is taste and check and correct our seasoning. So we'll just give it a quick test and see what it's like. And it's a bit bland, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the blue cheese that we got from the previous skip, and that's going to be salty as it is, and puree that into it while I puree it before I check again to see if it needs salt and pepper. So I'm just going to put it in whole and stir it into it and puree it into it as is. It's very important here to give it a really good puree. Take your time and get it really, really smooth. And if you're using one of these as well, to keep it in a circular motion and try and get as much air into it as possible. Right, so we just finished pureeing it, and as you can see, we've got a nice puree like so. Now, I want to get it a little bit smoother, so I'm just going to add in a little bit more water into it from our kettle. Not too much, just a splash, like so. Just going to add in a little pinch of cumin, so it works really well with cauliflower. Like so. And we just puree again and we see what it tastes like. That's good. It just needs a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Like so. A little bit of salt. Guys, it's a simple soup. You can see courgette and cauliflower. For this and more recipes of what I have and how I present food like this, go to my website. And you go like so, in that rocking motion. I've got some water here in the kettle boiled. Now I don't add too much water, some butter and some sunflower oil. About a half litre into it. And it's a bit bland, so how I present food like this, go to my website
www.talentedtommy.com.